Hello and welcome to this fourth session in the module Working with Families and Carers. Today we're going to be looking at family relationships. The work of Brenner 1990 has influenced the way that we think about families as systems. A family can be understood as a system. So first of all we have to ask the question what is a system? Can you think of any examples of systems and what are their features? Well, a system is an organisation of parts, and those parts have a certain relationship to each other. So for example we might talk of a hi-fi system in which the speakers are a separate part to the amplifier. Nevertheless, the speakers are connected to the amplifier by wiring, and information flows between the two via that wiring. Similarly, we may use the word system to explain a procedure at work. And within this example, we might think of taking an order, processing the order, and dispatching the order. So somebody makes a telephone call, we on the other end of the phone check to see if the item is in stock, we then take the person's details, fill out the necessary paperwork, take the payment from the person, and then dispatch the order. And usually this process happens in a straight line. It's a linear process. However, families and the relationship within families are not linear. Family systems rely on interconnected and interdependent individuals. So as we can see in this example, the family simply doesn't influence the behaviour, let's say, of the child. The child also influences the behaviour of the family. So this interaction and interdependency is much more complex within families, in that one family's method of interaction, this process, might be vastly different from another family's. Unlike our example of an order process or a hi-fi system, which is pretty much uniform across the board. If we accept that families are systems of interconnected and interdependent individuals, in order to understand the individual, we must understand the family system. People cannot be understood in isolation, and that is, to fully understand a person, we need to know where they've come from. And this is ascertained in the assessment process, which we'll look at later. Whilst we are looking at an individual within a family, we need to understand that a family is greater than the sum of its parts, and this is a gestaltist idea, in that there are things within families that are not first apparent, and that is the quality of the relationships that people have with each other within families, which cannot on first glance be seen as such, but through getting to know the family as a system we can understand the quality of those relationships, and we'll be looking at those last thing when we look at eco maps. As members of families, each member is interconnected. If you want an example of this, think about a children's mobile. And here's a children's mobile. If we imagine that these are family members, each one of these characters, we can see that each one is connected to another one. We'll be returning to this mobile idea when we discuss the concept of equilibrium. When one piece of the mobile moves, the whole mobile moves. Movement of one affects the whole system. Hence, if we were to pull down on this character, or this family member was to change, it would affect the other family members. If we were to pull him down, these others would move accordingly. Hence, the behaviour of one affects the behaviour of all within the interconnected and interrelated system of the family. Key concepts to think about when we're thinking about systems theory is: 1. That we all have family roles. And the exercise in class asked us to unpick what some of the family roles that we are aware of involve. And that doesn't just necessarily mean work roles, or roles such as father, mother, sister, brother, or breadwinner, or homemaker. Family roles can involve other things, like who is the family clown, or who is the person that people go to be reassured, or who is the person that winds up the other person or antagonises the other people. So family roles can contain a whole host of things, not necessarily the ones that we first think of when we think of role. Secondly, family rules, and these aren't necessarily written down or expressed. For example, we came up with the family rule that when there is a family gathering, such as Aunt Edith's 60th wedding anniversary, everyone in the family attends. It's an unwritten, unexpressed rule. We might protest by, when we are asked to attend Aunt Edith's wedding anniversary, to roll our eyes at the ceiling, to which it's met by a stern look from Mother. So we reluctantly attend the wedding anniversary. And that's an expression of a family rule, the rule being that when there is a family get-together, everyone attends. The third concept we must bear in mind is the idea of equilibrium. What is equilibrium? Equilibrium is a condition of a system in which competing influences are balanced. Each system has a tendency, a rule, a law if you like, to want to stay in equilibrium, to want to stay balanced and not change. So here's our mobile example. If this person wants to change, and let's say the example of change is to move out of the family home, this person is trying to affect change, and as this person moves in some way, as we saw earlier, it affects the movement of these other characters in the mobile or family members. But these other family members try to act against that change. So if we move this character in the mobile, eventually the weight of these other characters will balance the mobile out into this state of equilibrium or balance. And this is often family members' responses to one individual who is seeking to change. Within family systems theory, the focus is on how we relate to one another. We build a collection of interactions called a system. Hence, it's not just about family members and describing them and their characteristics. We need to develop our language and skill at describing the interactions that take place between family members, because it is the nature of the interactions that determine the nature of the system. Any social relationship can be described as a system. Family, work group, a collection of friends. However, today we're looking at families. To reiterate, our focus is on the system rather than just on single individuals or one or two individuals. It's how the whole system works. Within the system, there are qualitatively different elements that help determine what we are and what we can become. So first of all, we have to have some idea of who we are now. Please look at the resource online which is called Your Identity. Spend some time completing the worksheet, and consider how the family contributed to shaping your identity. Within our culture in Western Europe and America, there is an idea of the American dream. That is, that people are self-deterministic, in that we are free to choose and determine who it is that we ultimately become and who we are today. Do we accept that people are self-determining, or do we consider that systems such as this family shape who we are? And that's a key question, and one that ultimately cannot be answered as it's a philosophical question. Do we consider that we are born and we ultimately make ourselves, or do the families and other systems that we are part of shape who we are? And you might consider both sides of that argument. Within the session, you were asked to consider within your household what are your family rules and what are your various family roles, and there was a discussion that ensued. So let's work through an example of how we can understand family rules and family roles as existing within a family. Here we have an example of an alcoholic family member that often destabilises the family system. The alcoholic's unpredictability, violence, contempt and self-focus distorts much of the family's interaction. The whole family must adapt to these behaviours. They do things such as absorbing the anger, denying the effect of the alcoholic's behaviour, avoiding him, and even trying to cover up for the problem. In everyday language we might refer to this as making excuses or covering up for the person. Hence, that although within the family there might be a lot of negative interaction between the alcoholic and the other family members support the position of equilibrium. If one individual in the established system seeks to change, other individuals in the system will seek to resist that change and maintain the state of equilibrium. And we use the example that an elder sibling might seek to leave the family home to avoid having to deal with the alcoholic father. However, the alcoholic father pushes against that change in that he wants another member of the family, the eldest sibling, to absorb the anger and make these excuses, but also other members of the family, such as the mother, might be resistant to the elder sibling leaving because the mother requires the elder sibling to be a source of social support in dealing with the alcoholic father. In this section of the presentation we're going to explore genograms. And a genogram is a technical name for a family tree. Here's an example of a family tree. Within the genogram there are established rules for showing family roles and various events which have happened. And a genogram is a useful pictorial diagram which enables us to interpret the various people within families without having to read lots and lots of text. Hence, to communicate this information in text perhaps would run to one or two sides of A4, but here we can see quite straightforwardly who is related to who and what the relationships are. There is some information missing from this genogram, for example the age of John, Sue and Donna. Also, we're not sure of Liz's significant relationships as she is not connected to any parental figures. Here are the established icons when we complete a genogram. Within the session you were asked to complete these labels on a blank genogram. That exercise is available online. It's worth paying attention to the significance of these diagonal hash marks which indicate a separation or a divorce. You may want to complete a genogram for your family in order to familiarise yourself with the process of completing one of these diagrams. For the reading week period, I'd like you to choose between completing a genogram for your family or an eco map. And we're going to move on to eco maps now.